West Coast style light show at all the concerts. The Fillmore East also had something that none of the West Coast shows had: a permanent rear projection setup behind the stage. Unlike the California shows, where the artists would have to load it on Thursday and be out on Sunday, a permanent rear projection setup behind the stage provided a fertile, stable ground to experiment at. The Joshua Light Show would go on to develop the psychedelic light show, unlike the California, and raise it to a level of sophistication not seen in other light shows. So here's a few shots of them. You can see this massive setup that they had behind the stage and the platforms that they were on, and that was there all the time. They actually had a dark room on site as well. Here's some classic Joshua Light Show stuff. And here's a classic picture with Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention with JLS playing behind them. Now, while the so-called hippie era and counterculture was in full swing in the 1960s, by the early mid-1970s, things had changed. Rock and roll went from halls and went from halls that only had a couple of thousand people to arenas of tens of thousands. Bringing the complexities and fickleness of an experimental light show on the road to these types of venues was logistically prohibitive. Also, the evolution of stage lighting introduced the Verilight, which was the first moving head projector and precursor to what we mostly see in concert lighting today. On top of that, cultures and attitudes changed. Free love and hippies were no longer in vogue, and the light show went underground. And actually, if you can go back to the slides, I forgot to show this one. This is one of my favorite photos. This is Bill Ham and Joshua White at the San Francisco Exploratorium at a show that JLS went and did there a few years ago. And I just love this photo. I love seeing them two together, and I think the way the lighting and everything is a fantastic photo. So anyway, so while not as popular and prominent as the light shows were after the 70s, artists like Jerry Abrams and Glenn McKay kept the medium going and introduced it to a new generation of West Coast artists. Folks like Donovan Drummond and Reed Bainels learned from the masters and would continue to do shows through the 80s throughout today. And the Brotherhood of Light would also continue. And while pure analog and overhead projection had a hard time competing with bright concert lighting, there were a few modified projectors made, and I want to take some time with these next slides to talk about some of these. So here we have Chris